I
And
didn't
we're
know if we do
live.
that.
Welcome to Eviliv3, the live media commentary show where your virginity grows back. I don't know what's happening. You're being embraced by Neutrino Man or Neutron Man or I don't remember his name. Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we are reviewing Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, wildly known as the best Superman film by no one.
By
Wow.
that kid Jeremy in class, he calls it the best one.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? Fuck Jeremy. What does he know? His uncle touched him in a weird way, and he's never been the same since.
I'm jealous of Jeremy because Jeremy's voice is what I hope mine is after puberty.
Oh
But when
no!
the teacher asked him, like, "What do you think we could do, Jeremy?" It's
Right?
like, "I wrote a letter to Superman." Whoa, jeez, that kid's got a deep voice.
Is that Gene Hackman dubbing
Yeah,
Jeremy's voice?
yeah, he just
No,
dubbed everyone.
Jeremy's ball drop early. Like he was that kid in middle school that had like a bush, and you're just like, what? What is this? What the hell is happening? I don't even understand what this is. Like my coach is handing me a towel slowly and like yanking it back. So I have to like reach for it. And you have like a full bush. I don't even know how to react to this. I still, you know, cleanly waxed without having ever been waxed. All right. Any case, this was directed by Sidney J. Furie, written by Lawrence Connor and Mark Rosenthal. The log line is, with the world on the brink of nuclear war, Superman takes it upon himself to destroy all nuclear weapons. However, Lex Luthor creates Nuclear Man, a force strong enough to take down Superman. I think the saddest part of this entire film was when Superman was scratched by Nuclear Man and became like wildly sick and like dysfunctionally like just grotesque.
Got
And
sun
he
poisoning.
he looked he looked exactly like he did after like at the end of his day, like in the Superman documentary when he
Oh
was like at
yeah,
the end. I was just like, oh, this is too real. Oh fuck
yeah.
me, this is way too real. Like he looks like he did at the end. Was this like a weird foreshadowing, not just of his career but of his life? Like, and that's like a depressing even sentiment to put out there. But I really do feel like he put himself out there in this role. Like, I don't want to do this film. And they're like, yeah, but we'll pay you like millions of dollars. He's like, all right, look, I'll do it. But I want control over the script. I want control over the directors. I want this to be my baby. And they're like, you got it, Superman. And then we got this. And you're just
Yeah.
like, did he deserve what he got?
Well, you hit on one of the points that I wanted to bring up too, is like knowing that this was his last appearance as Superman, Christopher Reeves. It just adds an element watching it back now as a grown up that just like, I don't know what the right word is, wistfulness, like just like a sadness to it.
Yeah.
Besides the sadness that comes with
Like the
actual
reality.
the reality of how bad the movie is, but just knowing that this is how it ended is even worse. But you know, there's still moments in it where he just exemplifies that character so well. And if the lasting image is him flying over the planet, you know, looking at the
Right.
camera and smiling, like
Right.
that is a good lasting image, but it's still, this is not the way to go out, you
No.
know. It's sad.
I think that is an interesting point because we can sit through and we've sat through some really horrible Superman films, and yet we still get that iconic scene of him flying toward the camera out from the planet, doing that really awkward turn, and then like after he did the smile and then flying away. And I'm still just like, you got it, Superman. You've got it. Like, because you got the John Williams score behind it, and it's just like emotional, uplifting. And I will forgive literally anything if I just get, especially in today's climate, a moment of hope. You give me just like a glimpse of hope, like I blink span of time, like a a hummingbird's wing flap worth of time of hope. And
Yeah.
I will devote my life to you at this point because it is so grim right now that I just feel like anything is an upsell. And watching Superman 4 for whatever reason, and
Yeah.
it's got to be nostalgia. It's got to be like, I don't know, Stockholm syndrome. I don't know what it is. But as soon as I hear that John Williams score, and no matter how ridiculous the scene on screen is happening, I'm in, and I'm just like lifted. Do you experience the same thing, or are you a little divorced from it?
No, absolutely. I'm connected to it. Just knowing him as an individual, not knowing him in person,
You like
but
person?
no,
He's my uncle.
yeah, I mean,
We
we're
hung out.
related. Can't you tell we're clearly, genetic twins?
I
Maybe
didn't
like
want to say it, but yeah.
maybe like twins from Schwarzenegger and DeVito. I'm DeVito. But no, I think just knowing that this was his last, like I said, like his last time playing the character, it did add it. And there were some really lighthearted moments in this that, knowing how terrible it is,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just like really searching extra hard for those moments, but they're there.
Yeah.
Some of the
I
scenes
agree.
with Gene Hackman I really loved.
The
But
interplay
yeah,
between the two is fun.
yeah. And it's amazing that Gene Hackman decided to do this movie,
Yeah.
because he's one of the most respected actors of all time. And this is really bad script. And he had to have known that, right? I mean,
Well, yeah, I watched so many sort of like behind the scenes interviews about this film, and all of them were like, the script was not like this. Like, there's actually a logical script behind this. Warner Brothers edited it, and it was like cut for budgets, and they went so cheap on because they were trying to pay off other films on the special
yeah,
effects and stuff that it ended up being infinitely worse than it was on the page. And so I can understand that as an actor, you don't have control. All you know is you sign on due to a script. If the script is great, you just cross your fingers and hope it's going to be represented that way. And so
yeah.
for that reason alone, I can understand why everyone was like signed on and stuff, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, case in point, the budget was originally going to be 36 million, and then just before filming was set to begin, the Canon Group, which had purchased the rights,
Yeah.
was experiencing a lot of financial problems. They slashed it to 17 million.
Yeah.
So that explains why you see like a lot of special, if I can call them special effects.
Yeah, they're
The
special.
word, yeah,
They're special.
different kind of special. But you can see like a lot of the effects are repeated, like the same exact motion, like Superman flying the same way, but
Yeah.
then just going the opposite direction and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And how like that scene where he all of a sudden has the magic ability to repair the Great
That
Wall
was
of China.
insane.
That was supposed to be a special effect of him, furiously working in super speed
Oh.
and like hand fixing it.
Yeah.
But again, because they cut their
It's like
budget,
a
they didn't have
mason.
time for that. They just did it like the reverse thing where they just, yeah, it looks terrible. And also, it's a power he's never had before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
You can't
Yeah.
drop new powers on a superhero that's been around since the 50s and been in films for like almost a decade at this point to like suddenly be like, "Oh no, I'm a eye mason." Like if I just look at it, it rebuilds itself.
Right.
So ridiculous. And this film was cut so poorly due to Warner Brothers, actually, that because they didn't want to, cater to comic book nerds, which is some bullshit. If they just would have stuck to the original plan, they would have actually probably done pretty well because it had the Bizarro Superman in it originally. Like the first version of Nuclear Man was Bizarro Superman. And if you just would have added that one little weird thing, it probably would have looked ridiculous on screen, but you would have paid off the comic book obsession about Superman and the sort of like long-standing lore of Superman so that you then introduce all this other sort of bullshit nonsense. At least the people who care about the character would have had a give. But instead, you took that too. And so not only did you not pay off the fans of the character, you also didn't pay off any of the new people coming in because it was a terrible film. So it's like you're a double negative for some reason.
Yeah, I agree and disagree a bit with that because I
Did
watched
you
about
see
like
the clips?
I I was gonna say I watched the deleted scenes of the first
So
Nuclear Man,
bad.
and, and he is pretty bad. That
Yeah.
that character. I don't know if that would have added so much to the movie, but but the
It was
original
45 minutes.
but the original script had Christopher Reeves playing the Bizarro version of
Right.
himself,
Right.
and that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
I think on the heels of Superman 3, where he fought
Mm-hmm.
himself, it might have been repetitive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would have worked for that reason, but assuming that they didn't have that in the third one, which is, I know that's a lot of things to what
Right,
if.
right, right.
I think it would have been a really cool idea for him to be Bizarro and
Yeah.
to fight himself. That
Yeah.
I think that would have worked better than Nuclear Man.
Yeah, I agree too. Like throughout the entire production of Superman 4, Christopher Reeves was like in any type of press interview bloviating how wonderful of a script it is, how proud he is of working on it, and how it's going to be the best Superman since the first one. And I think ultimately it's because he had control here. And you can argue whether in the final cut he had any control at all, because I don't think he did. But in the generation of the actual film itself, he clearly had control. There's a point where he actually wanted Ron Howard to direct this thing. And Ron Howard was busy in pre production of Willow, which I'm glad that he
Yeah,
stayed there, because that's I think, a brilliant fantasy film. But like if he would have like abandoned Willow and come to Superman 4, the thing is Ron Howard is great. He has a vision, and I wonder if he could have restructured this film to be something truly valuable. But also, Wes Craven was signed on to do this damn film. And him and Christopher Reeve didn't make, like, they had horrible chemistry. And so he was
yeah,
immediately rejected because Christopher Reeve had right of refusal. And look, say what you want about Wes Craven, he's got some duds. He was off the heels of Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the best horror films of all time, hands down, unarguably, like the original. And like right off the heels of that, he's going to jump into Superman 4. I think he might have done better than what they
oh,
had.
100%. I'm a big believer that the editor and the director can
Yeah.
change a terrible script, terrible acting, even a low budget. I've seen a bunch of documentaries about how certain movies were saved in the edit. The Star Wars one, the original Star Wars one, is the best example
Mm-hmm.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
How George Lucas's ex-wife changed it completely, and if you see the before and after, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how much of a difference can be made in that editing room.
Yeah.
So let alone a director of that caliber having a go at it from the start. Even if you gave him the same footage,
Yeah.
I think it could have been so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the power of the editor. We never really consider as film goers, but if you're like a sort of a cinephile, then you certainly respect that profession because it can make or break a film, and we've seen it time and time again, done amazingly. So this was originally released July 23rd, 1987. It had a budget, ultimately originally it was higher, but of 17 million. It ended up making 30.2 million, still considered a failure. It made its money back and more, not quite double, but not shy from it. So in today's parlance, if you sort of adjust for inflation, not too shabby, but the film itself is just so bad that you can't really excuse it.
Yeah. And it was the lowest grossing of all the Superman movies
Yeah, it
up
was
to
like,
that point and since.
I think it was beat
So
out by like Over the Top, or like it was some like Sylvester Stallone movie, I think.
I well the it was the only Superman film that failed to open at number one in the box office when it came out. It was fourth. It was behind RoboCop, which
RoboCop, that's what it was.
fair. I mean, it was behind
That was
Summer
fun.
School,
I'd buy that for $1.
behind Summer School, and it was behind the re-release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from
Right,
1937.
right.
That one hurts a little bit.
I don't know. Like I'm a fan of the old school Disney, so like
But
I could see it.
the re-release 50 years later.
Yeah, yeah. They did the whole thing where it was like an event. They put the movies in the vault, and then
Oh,
when they
that's true.
released them, it was like a big thing. So I could see that,
Yeah,
just because it
that's true.
was it was a sort of tentpole situation. In
That's
any
funny.
case, like this is the fourth of an iteration that had diminishing returns each and every time. So as soon as they stripped away Donner's version of like a realistic Superman, then they stopped paying off the film going audience. You just get this sort of like ridiculous silliness. And I think we saw that in full form in this film, which just drove me nuts because the edits make zero sense. There's no logic for why one person would know something that another person is talking about because it's never explained in any way. Yeah, and just for example, Nuclear Man sees a picture of Muriel Hemingway's newspaper woman
La-
picture.
yeah, Lacey Warfield.
Thank you. Immediately goes to the paper office and he's like, "Where's the woman?" And
Yeah,
Superman knows what he's talking about. And be like,
yeah,
"There's a world full of them, Holmes. What the hell are you talking about? Like who?" And he's like, "You'll never find her." Who? Like, how do you know what the fuck he's talking about? And then
yeah.
just the fight sequences. They go to space, then to land, then space, then to land. No transitions between the two. It's just popping back and forth amid like random places. It makes no sense at all. It's so
And
frustrating.
this bothers me. At one point, Nuclear Man has Lacey Warfield with it's just even saying the name
Yeah.
makes me less of a human being. So he has Lacey with him, and he's in space, and
Right.
then he lets her go
Yeah.
to fight Superman, and comes back and she's just floating in space. And it's like, well, maybe in this world, in this universe, like people can't, can breathe in space and it's okay. But then like just a movie or two ago in Superman 2, there was the astronauts on the moon and they ripped the tubes off the astronauts and they died. Like,
Yeah.
like I'll buy into your BS, but just be consistent with it. So
Mm-hmm.
things like that really bug me.
Yeah, I think they bugged everyone, as evidenced by the box office. I wanted to mention the cinematography with Ernest Day because what the fuck, yo? They had a system set up for Superman to look realistic when he's flying, and to cut budget, they completely ignored it and they just like blue screened the shit out of it, and it was so horrible looking. No one looked real. Like every single situation looks super fake. Like they're clearly standing on a platform and they just do this fake punch and then they like
Yeah,
fly off ridiculously. It was so aggravating because it's not even like Saturday morning cartoon bullshit. This is like nonsense bullshit. How did
yeah.
this get passed into a feature film?
And it went even further, like in the first two movies when Richard Donner was doing a lot of the film work, they would hide the harness in his cape behind his back. Like they
Right.
really went to try to make it look good. In this one, they put it in his belt. And so it ends up it looks like he's just like, bulked up a little bit, or I mean, not that I'm one, to say anything, but he just looked different and I couldn't figure out why. And then I was reading some of the, how they made the movie and stuff like that. They just, to save, time and budget, they just put the harness
Yeah.
for the contraption that helps, fly Christopher Reeves in his belt. And that's what he looks like he, gained a few.
Yeah.
Stupid, stupid stuff like that.
It's ridiculous. And it's why IMDb has it at 3.7 rotten out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes is 10% rotten out of 16 audience score. I mean, this is just like the bottom of the barrel Superman films. Like it does not get worse than this. You have to really go back and like nitpick the old school TV series to get worse than this, which is frustrating because Christopher Reeve did have so much control over this and
Mm.
he had a vision. And I want to talk about that briefly with you because it brings up some really interesting socio-political commentary that I know Christopher Reeves and certainly the 80s hyper focused on with the whole threat of nuclear war and Russia v America. You know, this was just like the 80s personified. Going all the way back to the 60s, it's not like a new thing, but the Cold War era was a real genuine issue at the time. And so he wanted to hyper focus on this idea of getting rid of all nuclear weapons. And I always thought it was really interesting when he like goes up to the UN and he's like, because, and I'm paraphrasing, because nations are unable or unwilling to get rid of their nuclear weapons. I'm going to do it for them. And the reaction in the real world would be nothing short of shock and anger in reality. Like, this is what we use to deter other people using their nukes against us or to deter military action against us. Like, this is what we use to preserve peace. And you're just going to willy-nilly take it upon yourself to remove those restraints. And now and let's be fair, as kids reflecting on adults, we're like, oh, they've got to figure it out. They're adults. They're smart. And as adults, you're like, oh, fuck us all. We are screwed. No one here is smart. Everyone's a fucking idiot. Like, there's no upscale to being an adult because every adult's a fucking moron. And it just gets exponentially worse, it seems, through the years. And so at no point is there ever going to be an adult society where we're like, this is a good idea, Superman. Do it for us, and there will be zero repercussions. No, we are going to then demonize Superman. We're going to shit on the idea of de-escalation of nuclear development. We're going to actually start attacking our enemies now. We're like, ooh, this is our chance. Let's go to war. Like, that's just the universe we live in. And so the whole time I'm watching this, this is so unrealistic because it does not face the realities, not just of its time, which it should at least acknowledge, but certainly not of our time, which has only gotten sort of more slapstick ridiculous as we've gone on as a species. We're going into the time machine, sort of, that old school English, fuck me, I've read it and I've...
Oh, H.G. Wells?
H.G. Wells, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We've gone in, way past that ridiculous nature already and only getting worse.
Yeah.
And, there's no, admission or acknowledgement or just nothing to state that could never happen. No nation, independent nation, would allow a third party to take away their rights. And then even if they did, for some reason, their people would never stand up for it. And then all of the nations around the world would never stand up for it. It's just so simplistic and ridiculous to address such a serious issue and treat it so Saturday morning cartoonish. It just bothered me. I don't know. Did that bother you at all?
It did, and that was probably the biggest difference from watching it as a kid to as a grown up, because I hadn't seen this movie in a long time, and I think
won't
again. But that was interesting because as a kid, I was like, yeah, of course, what it's a great thing. But then as an adult, like you said, it doesn't make sense. There are a lot of countries that have more people than us. And the only thing that that keeps us safe compared to the amount of people they have is the fact that we have more, nuclear weapons than they do. And we have to have it balanced against, Russia and things like that. So it didn't make sense. But I thought there was a nugget of a good idea in there that was obviously not developed properly. But the idea that Superman is not just this good-natured superhero from Metropolis. He's literally an alien from another place, and how he views the world. I thought that was very interesting because if you have all these powers and you're helping, get the cat out of the tree and you feel good about it for a moment, and you're helping get the guy out of the car that flooded. Mm-hmm. But then you're looking at well, while I was doing that in another part of the world, there was just a war where 13,000 people died today. Yeah. Am I doing enough? And I thought that was a really interesting idea where, yes, he might want to say, listen, I have the power to do more. I shouldn't be happy with the cat in the tree. I need to do more to help these people because they're worth just as much as a human being. Just because they're in a foreign country, they're worth just as much as a human being as this person is in Metropolis. 100%. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, I wanted to get your take on that aspect.
It's 100% resonant, and I think it's a beautiful message that I feel like was lost because the film was so poorly executed. But there is that moment, and there's a cutscene where he takes the boy up into space and asks him as well, but where he's like, I wish you could all see this world like I do. There aren't boundaries, there's no borders. Like, you're all human beings on this planet, and I came here as an alien. He's sort of talking to the UN, I'm paraphrasing, but this is my home now, and I don't want to see it destroyed. Like, there's something genuinely beautiful in that sentiment that, people like Carl Sagan, that's the reason why we have that pale blue dot. Beautiful picture of a satellite reflecting back on the planet Earth in our own solar system, and we're just a tiny little dot in space, because he was trying to contextualize the ridiculousness that we continually fight with each other, but we are isolated on the same tiny rock, hurling hundreds of thousands of miles through space, isolated and alone, and we can't even agree not to be assholes to one another. Like, there's something genuinely, shockingly absurd about that. And we can call it the human condition, and we could just call it the ridiculousness of life, and we can call it whatever we want. But the reality is we're doing this shit to ourselves, and there's no reason for it. We literally don't have to fight each other. And I'm not saying we have to love each other and like hold each other's hands and appreciate each other. I'm not saying that at all. We can hate each other for whatever reason. We don't have to fucking murder each other because of it. We can just simply disagree. And that's it. And that's okay. Yeah. Like, it drives me insane. It's like this mantra that I've lived my entire life, watching my forefathers literally suffering from from fucking shell shock. Let's not sugarcoat it. From facing off in the Korean War, World War II with my grandfather, Vietnam with my fathers. They have to suffer because we can't get over the idea that we're just different, and that's not a bad thing. I know that's overly simplistic, but that is what I got from this when Superman was reflecting on it. And certainly when we saw that sort of outtake, I don't know if you saw it, but there's this outtake of him with that little boy that wrote him the letter, sort of flying through space. And he's like, what do you see? He's like, I don't see anything. I don't see borders or anything. He's like, exactly, little boy. There's no borders. We're all one people. And I was just like, especially in the 80s, in the Cold War sort of height, like, I don't know if the 80s was the height of the Cold War, but it was certainly still prevalent. That's a resonant message that we should all take to heart. And especially nowadays with not only external focus on the other that sort of American politics has shined its light on, but also internally. Like, it's an internal thing. Like, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, then you have to abjectly hate each other. And if your president that you elected into office is tearing down your quality of life and actively like destroying everything that makes America great, you still have to support him because it's your team and your team can't be wrong. Can we not just be humans? Like, can we not just acknowledge what is objectively right and wrong for each and every one of our lives and just focus on ourselves rather than hyper-focusing on other people and their lifestyles that we may or may not agree with? Like, how does that affect you ultimately, realistically? And it doesn't at all. And Superman in this film, I really think, quantified that notion, but it was buried in the shit film. And it's frustrating because I do really think that message needs to be spread far and wide. I don't care if it's a religion spreading it. I don't care if it's a political group or if it's just a culture. Like, we need to accept the fact that we are different and that's okay. And that's it. Yeah. It's that simple. I don't know.
Yeah, but I thought it was beautiful that it takes an alien to reflect properly on the value of humanity and what we're missing out on by forming these boundaries and borders and stuff like that. There was also a nice line in this. I think this was the voice of Kal-El's mom. Talking to him, and she said, and I wrote it down because I thought it was really cool. She said, "You could flee to new worlds where war is long forgotten. But if you teach the earth to put its faith in any one man, even yourself, you're teaching them to be betrayed." I thought that's for deep. Such a crappy movie, that's actually
That's
that's
deep.
actually pretty deep. If you're teaching the world to put their faith in one man, even you,
Mm-hmm.
then you're teaching them to be betrayed because people will fail you.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's really interesting.
It's such a powerful sentiment, and it's shocking because it can really be twisted into being anti-Christianity. Like the whole premise of the Abrahamic faiths is that you have one entity that governs everything that you have to put your faith in. So whether you acknowledge that as Allah or Yahweh or God or Jesus, whatever you personify, or Muhammad, however you sort of personify that religion, the idea that you would put all of your faith in one person will ultimately lead to your failure or destruction, or however she phrased it, is resonant and so true to every bit of our entire human history. And again, it just pays to the idea that instead of us hyper focusing on an individual or a movement or a group, and we just focus on ourselves and our semblance of trying to find happiness in the chaos of the universe, we would be so infinitely better portrayed as a species. And I don't think any film has ever done it better than Man of Steel to hyper focus.
I can't wait.
Oh, hold on a second. Maybe the film Batman v Superman, when he goes to face the congressional hearing, to hyper focus on the idea that he's an alien and he sees a different perspective of Earth that
Mm,
is seemingly so crystal clear to him and simple and concise, and should be acknowledged, but no one is acknowledging it. We saw that seed here, like years
yeah.
before, like a decade before, or more than a decade before. And yet it is lost in the silliness of the execution of the film. I think, and that's the strength, I think, ultimately why I, resonate so much with Superman as a concept, but also Christopher Reeve in I mean, he was the center of it, but he had nothing to do with it. The Super/Man documentary about his life, um, how he approached reality in sort of human expression. He admitted that he was a bit dismissive about other cultural statuses and lifestyles until he was a disabled individual. And then he realized how shitty he had been. And then he hyper focused on how to then elevate awareness and quality of life for the people that he then connected with. And
Mm,
that's a life worth paying attention to. People like him and Mr. Rogers, I think, that are not, and even though Mr. Rogers was actually a minister, but he didn't lead with that. People
I
who,
didn't know that.
yeah, oh, he was I think it was a Methodist or something like that, but he was an actual like priest. Um, he Beautiful documentaries about him. Mr. Rogers is one of the greatest human beings of all time. Full stop. I mean, I love him to death. But just the idea that you don't have to be attached to some organization or something to realize that you are just another human, and that doesn't make you better or worse, but just sharing an experience just as other human beings are. And that, again, you don't have to adopt some sort of doctrine to do something that makes you feel good without shitting on someone else.
Mm,
I mean, I don't know. Like that this film had such potential to have
yeah.
some genuinely powerful messaging. From that quote to just his whole concept of a planet without borders, and just wanting to preserve life on the planet because that's all we have. We don't have
Yeah.
anywhere else to go, people. Like this is it. This is
And
it.
and it's true. You hear from astronauts, they do interviews, and they say, like,
Mm-hmm.
they the same thing that the boy said, that when you get up there, it's just one world, there's no borders. But also, they see, when they're passing through the ozone layer, just how thin
Yeah.
that is, and just how fragile the Earth is. That's always their, like, point of view. They don't come away with, like, wow, the Earth is magnificent, and it's powerful, and it's eternal,
Everlasting. Yeah.
everlasting. They come down and they say, holy crap, like, there is very little keeping this all together. Like, we got to be careful,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Oh
So
man.
yeah, I just think some of that was evoked in this crappy movie that could have been developed a lot more.
Which,
Yeah.
these are the reasons why I'm really glad that we're doing this stuff, is because as a kid, I never picked up on that. Never even would have considered it. As an adult, I barely did because I was fighting through the ridiculousness of the scenarios and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is there, and it makes it worth watching, if for no other reason than just resonating the power of these sort of American gods, these Marvel heroes that we have created. You have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I'll extend it to the Flash just for fun, but these are characters that we have put the best traits of humanity within, and we allow them as almost like a new religious movement to then embody us and carry us forward aspirationally. And the reality is we don't have to put that in some sort of tertiary figure or mythological character or manufactured cartoon or comic. We could just be that.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and it sort of brings this like crazy emotional resonance with me, where it brings tears to my eyes, because like all we have is each other. And again, we don't have to support each other or love each other or anything, but we don't have to hate each other either.
Yeah.
Like,
For
there's
sure.
some power in that. Like work on bettering your life instead of tearing someone else's down. You will get so much further in your existence by that. And yet we don't do that.
100%.
Instead, we
Yeah.
just hyper focus on the other and demonizing and pushing them down and shutting them out and squashing them, because we feel like pushing someone else down rises us up. And the realization is that the further we push others down, the lower we have to go to do that.
Mm.
And we're not
Yeah.
higher for it. We've actually degraded ourselves for it. And it's not because of some like ultimate godliness or goodness or whatever. It's the reality of human expression. Don't be a dick, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Superman, is he's always willing to take it on the chin and go above and beyond. Because look, like the reality is if you or I saw a child drowning in a lake, I do not hesitate to think for a second that either of us would go out there and do everything we could to save that child.
I absolutely would, and both of us would have drowned. But I would have tried.
It's only because I failed at swim team. But
I would have tried.
but even like that, like the
Yeah.
idea of self-sacrifice, it's not something that I would
Yeah.
willingly like, I want to kill myself. But I certainly would try to save the child. And if the result
Yeah.
was my death, then I feel like it's worth it, because you're trying to save something with an opportunity, with a future, with a chance.
Yeah.
Like that's the sacrifice is worth the I don't know how to phrase it. It's worth it, and I would extrapolate that to any other human being. If I genuinely felt like I could help someone in some way, then I think that I would probably would. Just sort of going back to something that happened a long time ago. This was a number of years ago, but it was just this mother that had to like put back lettuce because she couldn't afford it with her food stamps, and I just told her that I would pay for that. If you can help someone, it doesn't hurt you. Do it. You're not looking for praise or anything, but there's no reason not to. Yeah, it's not like a stain on you for that.
I've actually find that it actually makes you feel good inside, and you could, some people relate that to a religious
Yeah, a lot of people do,
background behind it, or you could, there are examples in nature where you see animals helping other animals, and
100%.
supposedly they don't have souls, so it could just be something that's in our nature to want to help. But for whatever, and I don't judge whatever anyone believes, but there is a good feeling that wells up inside you when you do help someone. So
Yeah.
that alone is worth doing. If it makes you feel better about yourself, that
All the
has
more reason to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So I think we hit on like some of the best aspects. It was one.
Let's get to the worst. All right, I hear
I
you.
had, I no, I actually did have one more positive thing,
Mm-hmm.
not nearly as important as what we just went over, but I did think it was kind of ahead of its time when with the media aspect and how
Yep.
journalism was being sensationalized.
Yep.
And like this is 1987, like I felt like that was came much later on. I thought it was ahead of its time, much in the same way Superman 3 was ahead of its time with the the
Right.
fear of robotics and artificial
Yeah.
intelligence and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting too, how they hit on that part.
It's interesting because it is very much like science fiction novels of the 30s, 40s, and 50s resonate today because it does seem like they had some sort of like vision of where we would end up.
Yeah,
Star Trek is a perfect example where Roddenberry is envisioning this future that we are nearly there with. I mean, we're not like traversing the stars and communicating with alien cultures and stuff, but the technology that he's speaking of is actually stuff that is being researched by scientists today still. And we do have those communicators, and we do like have video on demand, even on our watches if we really want it. Like we are
yeah,
in that Jetson like future almost, except for the flying car. And even that exists, it's just not sort of realistic. So I think it is interesting how comic books, science fiction novels sort of foretell a future that is then realized, and it sort of sets up the reality. And I think ultimately what it does is speaks to the human condition, is that we are a predictable species. Our behavior is incredibly predictable because we're just animals when we distill it down.
mm,
And you can predict animal behavior as technology slowly advances, and as fast as it is advancing to us nowadays, it's still in that predictable state where we can see where we're going to end up, either whether it's with computers in the 80s and AI with Superman 3, or
yeah.
now with I don't actually know where you're going with the Superman 4 one.
Well, just the fact that
Oh, the
like
news.
media,
Yeah.
yeah, media
The
now, it's
headlines.
like the truth has gone away, and it's just
Yeah.
basically what gets clicks, what gets headlines and
Sensationalism.
stuff like that. Yeah, and I thought that was kind of an interesting topic for a crappy movie to bring up.
Yeah. It's so
About
strange
yeah,
this film is doing so many like forward-thinking concepts and like deep emotional like concepts. And it's just none of it lands because we're so hyper focused on bad CGI and shit.
yeah, yeah,
It's so
yeah,
weird. Yeah, I think that was like very prevalent in England, sort of UK, especially in their tabloids and stuff. It took a little while for USA to get there, but we got there. As soon as the
yeah,
internet took over and we started just hyper focusing on um, clickbait, is what we refer to it nowadays. Sort of headlines that are just ridiculous and salacious and force you to go like, I wonder what that's about. And like the worst part is like the real genuine serious headlines no one clicks on, but like the which actress showed her nipple, and we're just like, I need to see this right now. Click, 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 click. Like Superman tells kid fuck off. Like we're just like, wow, I need to see this. Like let me get that paper.
but I
Yeah,
think it's
very
interesting
resonant.
because it's analogous from like Superman is dealing with like the world problems, and Clark Kent is dealing on a much smaller scale where his job is being changed from
Right.
honest journalism to sensation. So it's like he's got to fight the big battle as Superman, and then he's got to fight the honest battle of keeping journalistic integrity intact in his profession. So I thought that was also kind of an interesting contradiction too. He's got to fight on both sides, you
That
know.
is very interesting. I feel like you're being generous with him though, because I'm not sure he was so focused on fighting the journalistic integrity as he was having a slapstick double date with two women.
Oh, you mean the Three's Company date? That's how I wrote it
Why
down.
did they even do that? Like, why would you agree to that, Clark Superman? Why? Like, there's no universe this turns out well. This is so ridiculous. In the middle of a film that has some real seeds of like intrigue and gravity. They're just
Yeah.
like, let's have a silly slapsticky moment. What? This is such a strange film. Like,
Yeah.
it was supposed to be like 45 minutes longer than it actually is, like in its first screening. I would be very interested to see that version of it if it resonates any more at all or not. Because, like, what the fuck kind of film is this? It makes no sense the way they edit it together. Like, there's no
Yeah.
logic to it, which is what I'm meaning. It really does feel like they're just like, fuck it, just hack. I don't care where you cut the scenes, just cut 45 minutes. And the editor was just like, hands in the air. Okay, I
Yeah.
guess.
So the funny thing with that is the reason they wanted to cut it down is because they thought that the movie would be so well received that they would be able to get more money because it would be shown more often.
Right.
The whole idea, like if a studio could show it 4 times a day versus 3 because it has a shorter runtime, then that's gonna get that many more seats.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I did watch about 45 minutes of deleted scenes. So if that's what it was, it would not have helped. Like it did explain, like you mentioned, the Nuclear Man having the crush on Lacey Warfield. There was like a whole thing that was
Really?
filmed of explaining that in the deleted scenes.
Where did you see that?
I like YouTube. I found one clip
Okay.
I could send you, which it had about like 30 minutes of it.
Wow.
And so it explained like how he fell in love with her or whatever like that. It didn't really add that much aside from the fact that it explained why Superman knows what he's talking about. It would have helped a little bit.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was that other Nuclear Man, and I don't think that would have added that much to the movie. I think it was just as bad. That guy was
That guy was
terrible. Yeah.
He looked. It was like Tom Arnold on a bender. Is what it looked like.
Yeah.
he like pushing a fucking like a taxi or something. The clip I saw was really, really bad. I just like the concept of Bizarro Superman.
Yes, Bizarro would have been cool.
Yeah.
In fact, there's so many good villains, and this is what bothered me as a kid. Like Nuclear Man, who was made up for the movie, he felt too much like Non, who was the dumb Kryptonian criminal from Superman 2. Just like that, he's got the same powers as Superman, but he's dumb. I just felt like it was kind of repetitive. And there's been some really good Superman villains that would have been fun. Bizarro, you mentioned, would have been great. Doomsday, Brainiac, Darkseid, Parasite. Any one of these would have been better than making up a character for the movie. Like, just you have 50 years of canon to draw from. Why are you making something up?
Well, they did originally want to do Brainiac, I mean, and they wanted to do the whole like he split Superman in 2, but they were like, oh, we already did that in Superman 3, so we can't do that again. And so that's sort of how it evolved. But and again, the studio was like, don't do Brainiac because no one except for comic book nerds are going to appreciate it. You're doing a comic book movie. Play it to the nerds. Like that. What are you doing, studios? Like it's for the nerds, isn't it not? Like you're pretending like it's going to be some highbrow thing, but it's a dude in tights flying around saving people. It's for the nerds. Like, just give us a little bit of love and we will pay it back in spades. We'll go see them film in theaters multiple times. We will like rave review it. Like, just give us what we want and we will make it worth your while. I've never understood that idea. Like, well, we have to speak to a wider audience. The wider audience doesn't give a fuck, but the tiny audience really cares.
Yeah.
Pay it off to them.
And
give me a Dragonlance movie, god damn it.
Oh gosh. Don't get me started. Let's do 45 minutes on that. But
tight 45.
Yeah. But no, I just feel like they easily could have. The general audience will buy in. If subsequent Superman movies have introduced these characters, and as long as you do it well, like, people will understand. Like, you don't have to be a comic book nerd to enjoy it if the character is explained well. But those nerds will know going in and they'll enjoy it.
100%. So John, thanks for tuning in. Your favorite movie back in '87. That's awesome. Robert, how you doing? You looked amazing in those tights. Hey, I put on those tights. You want some pictures? I'll burn your retinas out with my tight pictures. They probably would screw it up. Yeah, to be fair. But you know what? At least I'd like the shot. I'd like them to try it,
Yeah.
just see how it goes. Even if it's horrible, at least I could say, they tried. It doesn't work. Now we know, but at least they tried. We don't even get that with
Yeah.
Dragonlance films. We just get a cartoon that cuts shit short and it's ridiculous. For
Yeah.
Superman, however, we did get a ton of films. So even if some of these are less than wonderful or abjectly horrible, I do feel like I've gotten some Superman films that I'm very happy with. Like, I loved the first Superman film. I loved Man of Steel. And the Zack Snyder edit of Justice League, I really enjoyed. And so I
Mm.
felt like I got a really great DC experience on live action screens. So, I don't feel like I'm missing out or, people have forgotten about, this sort of thing. And we've gotten a lot of really amazing Batman films for DC. So
Oh gosh, yeah.
DC's done a really great job, and so has Marvel. They, even though some of the newer stuff isn't really resonating as much, they had a run that went wildly
Unprecedented.
successfully.
Unprecedented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just amazing what they did. And so it's not like we can't pretend we're not being paid attention to. We clearly are, and the dollars are there if you do it well. Um, I just, let me ask you really quick. What did you
Yeah.
see the Flash film? The
I
newest,
did.
latest Flash. So what did you think about
Yeah.
including Reeve Superman in that?
My only issue with it is that I heard that they didn't get the permission of the estate, and I think
Oh,
this is kind.
really?
That's what I heard, and I could be wrong,
Right.
but I think it gets into a dicey area. I do like it as an homage,
Mm.
but I feel like I don't know, like we're in this area now where you could recreate an entire performance of an
Mm-hmm.
actor who's passed away.
Yeah.
You could do an entire Princess Leia movie, and it would
Yeah.
be all computer generated, and it kind of gets into some tough questions about the value of a human autonomy, and when they're gone and they don't have the rights to agree or disagree, and
Right.
it's almost like a form of slavery. I hate to put it that way, but if you're using someone without their permission, and your slavery is maybe too harsh a word, but basically you're there's no control. So
Mm.
unless the only people who could agree to it is the family. If the family allows it, that's one thing, and if it benefits them, the children of the actor, that's one thing. But I don't like the idea of just kind of like using someone's likeness without their permission, and they have no say in it.
Right. Right.
I don't
Right.
know. It
I
makes me
like
feel
how they.
dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good descriptor. It just feels dirty a little bit. Look, we've seen like theater. The entire theater space has been filled with actors, new actors taking on existing roles and doing wonderfully for it, or maybe doing poorly. But you clearly cycle through actors. How many Hamlets have there been in the scope of human existence? It's it's innumerable. It's so many Hamlets. So I mean, even Mel Gibson was one of them. He's a good one too. I actually enjoyed it for what it was. But my point being, you don't have to rely on the same actor's likeness because it's a character that the actor was embodying. And I think we tend to hyper focus on the actor portraying the character, and so we're like, oh, Christian Bale's my Batman. No. And, for me, it's like old school, and you sort of go back to the Tim Burton Batmans, and maybe you even go to the newest Batmans because you're a fucking loser and don't know what good cinema is. Not that I have an opinion. He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad. It was just a bad story, in my
Patented.
opinion. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he literally
yeah.
stumbled his way through the whole film. Like they made Batman just a bumbling idiot. He was like a Watson. Other people told him about everything the whole film,
Mhm.
And if you just
Yeah.
like sit back and just like watch it, you're just like, wow, Batman's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
literally told everything the whole film. And that's not the Batman I like. I like Keaton, where he's like the sort of bachelor, the Hugh Hefner in a massive room with Kim Basinger, but he also likes to get out there and fuck some shit up.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Anyway, my point is, anyone should be open to playing a character because it's a character. It's not a real tangible human. And we should not be so locked in to an individual actor portraying that character. When it comes to like a character portrayal, like in Flash, where they were like, no, this is this version of Batman and this version of Superman, and we're going to show the different versions throughout. I think that's more of an homage than it is like
Mhm.
stealing anything from them. But that's a hyper specific situation because it was very much just like, momentary sort of showcasing different actors and stuff. It even went to like
Yeah.
the TV Superman, which was super fun and stuff, but not good.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind it as much, but I in the scope of Superman, which ultimately is what we're talking about. The reason why we started this series is because the new Superman's coming out. In the scope of the different Supermans playing the big screen, as frustrated as I may be by the scripts or the scenarios or the ultimate films, I think it's inarguable that Christopher Reeve will always go down as,
Mhm.
if not the best, then one of the best Superman actors. There's just something about him, his presence, his joy that he presents on screen, the way he can shift between Superman and Clark Kent and how wildly different they feel. And not just in the contrived situations, but genuinely in his performance. He is sort of next level, And like my favorite Superman is Cavill because I think Cavill is a beautiful specimen of human existence. Like I don't know what it is, but I don't think his Clark Kent can match Reeves' Clark Kent.
Right. That's a great point. It's almost you have to play two characters, just like how in Batman you have to be a great
Mm,
Bruce Wayne, and you also have to be believable as Batman. That's why I thought Christian Bale was great because he had the physicality that I thought
yeah.
Keaton didn't really have. But then again, Keaton was a better Bruce Wayne, so it's tough. You got to play two roles,
Right,
and
right, right.
and I think Cavill was the best version of both. But I do feel that as Clark Kent, that Christopher Reeves hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think we'll get to. Well, I don't think we'll ever get anyone better than him. He has that innate goodness to him, which I don't think.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think maybe it's my, what about West? I mean, I don't know. I'm not that old, dude. I don't know how old you think I am, Robert. That's the TV Superman. Um, I saw the Ben Affleck version of him, which, in that sort of bio, which was good. But I never watched any of those old black and white Superman, TV series. Um, Ultimately, I think we will never be rid of the idea that Reeves did justice to the character of Superman more so than any other character in his entire career. Even though I really do love his sort of Lost in Time film that he did, where he like traveled through time and found this other lover, and it was like
I
a
did see that.
romantic movie. It's so beautiful. I'm a romantic at heart, so it just pulls on my heartstrings. And he's just brilliant in it. But other than that, I mean, he will forever be Superman, no matter what. And when we're sort of reflecting on the series of the films that he was sort of featured in, it may not be a great one, but there's still moments. We dove into some really difficult sociopolitical commentary that this film brought up that was never really paid off in the film, but is still worth having a conversation about in reflection. And that's because he took direction of this film and he wanted to have a statement about the film that he was making. And if he didn't do that, then we wouldn't be having that conversation and it would just be a hollow Superman forgetful film. So I think he brings something significant to the role. And it's why I love Star Wars so much. It's why I love Luke Skywalker so much, because Luke Skywalker is Superman the way I see
Mhm.
him. The character, everything that he's ever done. I mean, he's not an alien from another world, but you can arguably say that he is an alien from Tatooine. You know, going to other planets like Yavin 4 or whatever, or Dagobah. He's an alien. He's from a different place. But he's the aspiration of
Mhm.
what is right and just.
Yeah.
And there is I think there's a fair amount of consideration on what that means for every individual, because it is going to depend on your culture, the region you were raised in, the social political environment that you were raised in. So everyone's going to be a little bit different, even broken down to the individual chemistry of an individual. But we can all connect with what it means in our version of good and just. And because we all share that very human connection, we can then relate to this alien, this godlike alien, whether it's personified in Star Wars or Superman or any other fantasy tale. And I don't know, it brings a sense of joy for me. It brings a sense of happiness. It makes me think that maybe we're not doomed to be fucked. You know, maybe there is a glimmer of hope, because if we can relate to something that is not real, that speaks to our better natures, then possibly we can be the better nature in reality. You know what I mean? We can personify that in some way.
Well, yeah, and also if an outsider can see the potential that we have,
Right.
even something that we can't see in ourselves, then
Mm-hmm.
I think there is more value to us, and I think that the a fact that he is not from Earth,
Mm.
you know, gives that perspective that yeah, there's more to us, and he sees the potential
Yeah.
and believes in us. He could have bailed. He could have gone to another planet. Yeah.
That's what was so great about this, because this is the first film where it overtly said, no, there's other places. You can go
Yeah.
explore. They've evolved.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay here. I was just like, wait, what? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Carl Sagan in me, like the sort of like the contact person in me. I'm just like, wait, who are these people? Like,
Yeah. I was kind of curious, like, what
please
other
tell me.
galaxies are?
I'm
I want to see that
interested.
movie.
Yeah. Um, but I don't know. I like the next film we're going into is the premise is that Superman left to see the remnants of his destroyed world. When I started watching this film for the first time, I was like, because I had already seen Superman Returns, I was like, well, this must end with him telling Lois that he's going to leave and explore his roots.
Yeah.
And it doesn't at all. So I don't know where the hell they got that connection, but we got Gene Hackman back. We got some old school actors back. So I'm really looking forward to the next one, because I really liked Superman Returns.
Yeah, I don't remember, but the interesting thing about that is he tells Luther, he says, "I'll see you in 20 years," and it was
Yeah.
exactly 20 years that the next
That's
Superman movie came out.
crazy.
So it's just kind of like one of those weird coincidences.
Yeah,
So
that's
I don't
crazy.
remember this one either. I think I probably saw it when it first came out in the theater, and it was not really overwhelmed by it, and so I'm really psyched to have a new perspective on it
Oh man,
now.
I've seen it a couple
Yeah.
times. I really enjoyed it. The actor ended up playing some other DC characters in the CW sort of series, the TV series and stuff.
Okay.
But I really thought he was a decent. I mean, he wasn't Christopher Reeve, and he wasn't Henry Cavill, but he was
Yeah.
a serviceable Superman, and he looked handsome and strong, and he played the joyous Boy Scout that we all want Superman to be.
Yeah.
I feel like he personified it really well. Even though the story was a little bit expected and trite and redundant from the first Superman film, it's infinitely better than this version of this is
Yeah.
Superman 4. And it's going to be a fun one to talk about too. So I look forward to talking about that with you. Robert,
Sweet.
you're right. Superman is definitely something that gives us something to aspire to. No matter where you land in that sort of religious, socio-political line, we can all connect with that, and it's because we're all humans and we live with this sort of human mythology that Joseph Campbell so brilliantly tapped into with the hero's journey. It's something like within us. I think it's important to note that we are connected with every aspect of life. Anything living on this planet, we share DNA with. And the recognition of that, the awareness of that, in the best of cases, means that we feel the connection, not just are aware of it, but we're like respect that connection. And that makes us be better versions of ourselves. And it's one of the reasons why I will never, no matter how dark America may get, I will never give up on the aspiration that, oh, I'm getting like emotional. We aspire to be a better union. Not that we are the best, but we will continue to fight to be better than we were before. Even if we hit some low points, we will rise above and we will fight through it and we will try to be better. That is what it means to be human. To be a better version of who you are right now, aspirationally into the future. That's what Superman represents. That's what the hero of all heroes' journeys represent that Joseph Campbell tapped into. That's what the best of science fiction and fantasy films and dramas that celebrate the best of humanity present. We are so much better than what we are experiencing, and we should continue to aspire to be better. Whatever that means to you as the individual. It doesn't have to be a collective understanding of that, but just a better version of you. I think that's what Superman brings, and that's why I will even happily watch the shittiest of Superman films in Superman 4. And we did. And we did. All right. So, I mean, there's even like a novelization of this, and I mean, it's just like stuff that I just don't want to live in this film any more than we've already lived through it after an hour of like having a conversation. Closing thoughts. Is there a takeaway for this film for you?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to say, like, I have to look past some of the things like this guy, who
the guy ready to hug you behind you. It's like, come here.
Yeah. The American Gladiator, I called him.
100%. That's exactly what I said too. I was like, that's like American Gladiator.
So, I mean, you have to look past, especially knowing that this would be his last performance as it. And I can't top what you said. You said it perfectly. The fact that Superman has seen some of the worst in humanity, like Lex Luthor has tried to get him killed and came very close multiple times. And he's seen world leaders not do the right thing. So many people try to kill him. He keeps seeing evil in humanity. And the fact that he doesn't give up on us, he doesn't get discouraged. He doesn't become like, he doesn't change his positive outlook.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he maintains aspirationally what, humanity could be, and not just America, but just what humanity could be.
We open with him saving the Ruskies, like the Russian astronauts. I mean, it's
speaking their language, which is the first time.
And then even speaking like when he the volcano, he was speaking Italian and stuff. I mean, he's just a universal character.
Yeah. So the fact that he hasn't been, changed in a negative way, it's just something beautiful to it, because he doesn't see us for what we are. He sees us for what we can be. And I just absolutely love. And the last image, as bad as this movie is, if you just watch the last 10 seconds, you will still feel positive about the movie and about Christopher Reeves. Just him smiling at the camera and flying off is just like the perfect send off to who he was as an actor and as a character in this. Yeah.
I think it also speaks to the genuine power of the John Williams Superman theme. I mean, just it's so resonant. It there are certain scores, like the Star Wars score, that will just evoke emotion within me. If I hear the national anthem, I just break down crying like a little baby for some reason. If I hear Scotland the Brave, it just really strikes a chord in me. There's certain songs, even here with the bagpipe, like Taps, or what is that song? In any case, there's just a bunch of different songs that, with the orchestration and the presentation of them, there's something that goes beyond just the song itself. It taps into something deep in your core. This is one of those songs where I'm watching this going, this is horrible. What the hell am I doing with my life? And then suddenly the score comes in. I'm just like, nope, it's the best. I love it. Superman. Yes, Superman. I can't help it. It's like Pavlov with dogs' saliva, like they hear a bell and there's like, like that's what I am with Superman's like theme song. I can't help it. It brings it out of me. So good. All right. Well, this has been an interesting journey to go through these films, the Christopher Reeve Superman films. Our next one is going to be the first non-Christopher Reeve Superman film, Superman Returns. And I'm very much looking forward to that because I think it is so much better than the last 3 films we've watched.
Yeah.
It's right after Superman 1, in my opinion, as far as quality and just fun. And we get some really great actors coming back for it, and it sort of connects to the original mythology in a really wonderful way. So I can't wait to talk about that with you. For those of you watching this at home, have you seen Superman 4 or any of the other Superman films in a while? And is it because you're traumatized by watching them or you just haven't seen them? And I would challenge you, watch Superman 4. We spent an hour talking about some really nuanced concepts that were introduced in the film that were never really paid off, but they are worth having a conversation about. And we wouldn't have had that conversation had we not watched this film. So do yourselves a favor, revisit these old ones because there are little semblances within them that are valuable and worth, especially in, I don't care where you fall down the political spectrum. It seems really dark right now. And it doesn't have to be. Like, we can make a choice. It's always a choice. So revisit these films, especially this one particularly. It has some great little moments in it that can inspire. It certainly inspired me, whether it was just John Williams' score or whether it was Superman being Superman. It's worth it,
Well said, 100%.
All right. Well, thank you all so very much for tuning in. As always, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live. Weird way to close that conversation out. So get out there and be evil. Oh, I should have gone to this screen. I had like a little poster. Look at that. Little Superman poster. Aww.
Just a tip sticking out. Just a tip.
Just a tip. That's all you really need. And that's all I really have, but that's all you need.